Good evening or good afternoon, as the case may be. Welcome to this webinar on the careers of the future and transferable skills. I hope that all of you are at home, safe, and in the best of health. My name is Arjya Majumdar. I'm the Dean of Admissions and Outreach at OP Jindal Global University in Sonipat, Haryana. Thank you for attending this webinar today. I'm hoping that this will be of some use and some benefit to all of you who are attending. I will be talking about careers of the future and transferable skills for the first 17 to 20 minutes, after which I'm happy to take any questions. Of course, if you wish to ask questions in advance, please go ahead and ask them. I will not be able to answer them until we've finished the actual webinar. As students, faculty, staff, and members of an educational community, we may have recognized the importance of staying engaged and looking to the future with optimism and a sense of possibility during these extraordinarily difficult times for our country and the world. While we remain in isolation and confinement in the coming days, many of us face difficulties, including managing daily life under lockdown, caring for our family members and loved ones, and maintaining our physical and mental well-being. In the midst of this crisis, we perhaps might find solace in renewing our commitment to our respective areas of interest and scholarship, while also seeking out new and unexplored areas, including the ability to work remotely. As we have adapted to achieving efficiency while working remotely, there will be new job opportunities, and so will the demand for a new kind of workforce arise. As more people are forced to work online and remotely, companies and employees are developing new skills and comfort levels with technology. Companies will end up learning what jobs really need to be done in the workplace, what jobs can be done at the home, and will attempt to re-engineer the workplace. This might result in many jobs being cut and or redefined. Some careers may vanish entirely. We know that a business will be reshaped in the future in a post-coronavirus world. So how do you prepare yourself for that brave but uncertain future? So today, we'll be talking about what kind of skills that we will need and might be useful for the careers of the future. Now, those of you who are listening in or watching this, have you heard of this Swedish gentleman by the name of Felix Kjellberg? I'm assuming most of you haven't. But you would have heard his YouTube name, which is PewDiePie. Now, PewDiePie is a YouTube gamer. People view his videos, but they must first watch an advertisement or maybe two advertisements. And every time you watch an advertisement, you contribute to his revenue. He makes approximately $140,000 to $1.4 million per month. Closer to home, India's Bhuvan Bam is believed to earn around 3 to 4 lakh rupees from each of his BBQ Vines videos on an average. Chiara Ferragni, an Italian fashion blogger known for her blog The Blonde Salad, was ranked first on the Forbes top fashion influencers list. She now takes home about $8 million from her blog, and she's recently even set up her own shoe business. 10 years back, maybe even 8 years back, the idea of a career gamer or a YouTuber or a social media influencer, these careers didn't exist. In fact, even now, your parents and your teachers will consider gaming to be a mere pastime, a distraction from your core activity, which happens to be studying. These examples of PewDiePie and Bhuvan Bam aren't to encourage you to become YouTubers. Because remember, for every one Bhuvan Bam, there are thousands, perhaps even millions of people who've tried their hand at being a YouTuber and have failed. However, these are just examples of an ever-changing world of what could be a career and what careers will eventually die out. A recent study showed that 85% of the jobs that will exist in 2030 haven't been invented yet. What this means for young millennials such as yourself is that there is a high degree of uncertainty as to which jobs are here to stay and which are coming up on the horizon. In this scenario, how do you prepare yourself for what we call a brave but uncertain future? The first step is to dissociate your training from your career. Now, you've all seen this movie called Three Idiots. In the movie Three Idiots, there was this joke that came up asking, what do engineers usually do after their engineering degree? They usually appear for the CAT, the Common Entrance Exam for the IIMs, go on to do an MBA, and eventually become an investment banker. There's hardly a correlation between engineering and investment banking, except that they both require a very high quantitative aptitude. Let's take a few more examples. Steve Jobs, the founder and chairman of Apple, didn't have a computer science degree, didn't have an engineering degree. He had a liberal arts degree. He didn't have a degree in computer science. Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba, doesn't have an MBA either. He has a BA in English. In fact, he applied to Harvard Business School 10 times and failed each time. Elon Musk, the founder of Tesla and SpaceX and Hyperloop, again, he doesn't have a degree in technology. He has a degree in political science. Closer to home, I trained as a lawyer for 5 years and then practiced as a lawyer across New York, London, and Delhi for 7 years. Now, as Dean of Admissions at OP Jindal Global University, the job that I do requires more people skills than lawyering skills. Most of you would have seen this TV series called The Big Bang Theory. Mayim Bialik, she earned her PhD in neuroscience from the University of California and then went on to act as a neuroscientist on The Big Bang Theory. Pragya Bhatt was trained as a software engineer and worked in the IT industry for more than 8 years, and now she teaches yoga full-time. Even Kenny Sebastian has a bachelor's degree in visual arts, and now he's known to us as a world-class comedian. These are examples of people dissociating their careers from their training. Your school education should provide you with a wide enough grounding in a variety of subjects. For example, depending upon the stream you've taken up, it should provide you with grounding in, let's say, physics, chemistry, mathematics, or political science, sociology, economics. Your college education should provide you with a bit of specialization in terms of the program that you've taken up. But that program that you have taken up, that specialization that you have taken up, doesn't necessarily have to go on to define you. This is the first step. That what I train for does not necessarily need to be my career. The second step is to develop the key skills which are transferable across sectors and functions. These are the transferable skills that we were talking about. Different people have different ideas on what these skills should be. I have a list of 7 skills, which I believe are going to be invaluable in the future, no matter what career you choose to take up. The first, an intellectual curiosity, an urge to learn new things continuously. What this does is it leads to an acquisition of general knowledge about the world around us and how it works. But more importantly, it develops the skills to ask the questions as to what is it that I'm observing, and why does this thing that I'm observing, why does it behave in the way it does? For example, every morning we see a bright orange ball rise in the sky, and this bright orange ball quickly turns yellow. We know it's the sun, but the idea of asking, what am I looking at and how does it work, are key indicators of intellectual curiosity. And this intellectual curiosity lies at the very core of the scientific method of inquiry, which has led us to huge developments in terms of technology, in terms of politics, in terms of economics, in terms of even sociology. The second key skill is that of critical thinking. Now, critical thinking is a natural progression from having an intellectual curiosity. Once I've started observing things around me and I'm questioning why things the way they are, we can now apply that knowledge to making decisions. At the core of critical thinking is a very, very simple idea. That is to assume nothing. Once you take this position of assuming nothing, you then start collecting data based on your intellectual curiosity. Now, this data may both support and it may disprove what you want to decide, what your arguments are. Based on this data, then you take a decision taking into account multiple perspectives, including that of the people who will be affected by that decision. Now, some of these decisions might be very, very difficult to make. For example, on 23rd March 2020, our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, he declared a complete lockdown for 3 weeks, which was then extended further. I don't know whether the Prime Minister's office collected the data about migrant laborers who would be out of a job and would have to walk back for thousands of kilometers. This decision of the lockdown has affected us all, in some ways more than others. So, for example, if you are sitting in a comfortable room with a laptop or a phone in front of you watching this, consider yourself privileged. There are people who are still possibly walking home. And I don't know whether the Prime Minister's office took into account that data as well. As a result, you must always question the logic behind your own decisions. The third skill that I have is interpersonal skills. Eventually, we'll have systems where computers will regularly talk to each other. We already have a glimpse of the future in the idea of the Internet of Things, where, for example, your internet connected smart fridge will order for eggs and milk from Grofers or Big Basket or Amazon the moment it senses that you are running low on milk and eggs. However, social interactions are difficult to automate, and it is likely that people will have to continue talking to each other. The key to great interpersonal skills is great communication. What will matter is not only how you communicate your ideas, but also how you negotiate and influence others. How do you get them to see your point of view? And the key to this great communication is to listen to what others have to say. The fourth key skill that you should know about is that of versatility. We are bound to see changing trends in the market. We've seen changing trends in the market for many, many years, and changes is the only thing that is constant, especially after this global pandemic. What a successful person needs then is to be able to adapt to these changes in a quick manner. What this does is it requires a determination to ride the wave and use new opportunities. It also includes the ability to reskill and upskill and cater to changing times. For this, being versatile is essential. Fifth, a diversity and cultural intelligence. In a world where everything is connected, people have greater access to mobility, both physical and intellectual. You and I are separated by a few thousand kilometers, and yet we are connected. As a result of this mobility, our world and our workplaces become far more diverse and open. For example, at the OP Jindal Global University, we have about 17% of our faculty members as foreign nationals. We have faculty members from all parts of the world, including China, Russia, Japan, South Korea, and Africa, the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Italy, you name it. And yet we work, live, and we exist together. It is vital that individuals have the skill to understand, respect, and work with others despite differences in race, culture, language, gender, sexual orientation, or even political or maybe even religious beliefs. The sixth core skill that I have is that of service orientation. This might be summed up in an old Sanskrit saying from the Bhagavad Gita that karmanneva dhikaratu ma phaleshu kadachana. What that means is do your job, don't worry about the rewards. It might be easier to hand over lots of our processes to machines in the future, but the human touch is something that people will always want. Customers will still want to deal with actual humans. Service orientation is the ability and desire to anticipate, recognize, and meet other people's needs, sometimes even before those needs are articulated, sometimes even before they have spoken out those needs. Therefore, service-oriented people focus on providing satisfaction and making themselves available to others. This was defined as actively seeking ways to help others. Let me ask you a question. How much do you assist those or help out those on your team, your superiors, the people across your industry, your family, your friends even? And how much are you known for that? I don't need an answer. This is just a question for you. In the everyday world around us, services, whether professional or interpersonal, are and have been commonplace for as long as civilized history has existed and will continue to be crucial in the future. Lastly, ethical aptitude. We shouldn't forget one of the key behavioral traits that separate us from animals. That behavioral trait being that of ethics. How we apply ethical principles to professional situations speaks a lot about who we are as individuals, whether we care about more than just profits. For example, I can give you a story from back when I was a corporate lawyer. I was advising this South Korean company who wanted to set up an iron mine and a steel plant in Odisha. And as a result of their transaction, they had approached the government of Odisha to get some land from them. Now, the government of Odisha used a law to take away land from farmers and gave that land to the South Korean company. Now, these farmers were obviously, they were compensated, they were paid money for their land. But the Odisha government also asked us to go in to that village and to negotiate and to find out and to get them on board, to get the farmers on board. So this is what we did. We went there only to find that these farmers were very, very angry with us. They did not want their lands to be taken away. They did not want to hand over their crops, their crop growing lands to this South Korean mining company. And as a result, they were out of a job. They were also out of land, which is why they were really angry. Now, here's the ethical question that we had. Should the South Korean mining company, should they be concerned about these farmers' rights? Because as far as the South Korean mining company is concerned, they simply approached the government of Orissa, and the government of Orissa has given them the land. They have nothing to do with the farmers. But this decision of setting up an iron plant, an iron mine, and a steel plant did affect those farmers. Whether we care about how our decisions affect other people around us is really, really important. Whether we care about sustainability, whether we care about more than just profits. Of course, these ethical decisions are sometimes the most difficult to take. And developing the skills to be able to be, determined enough to take an ethical decision, doesn't matter how unpopular that decision is, that skill of taking an unpopular but ethical and difficult decision, that becomes important. These were my 7 core skills that I believe are transferable across any career, anytime in your future. If you have any other skills that you think are important, do let me know. I'm happy to take questions now, whether it's about careers of the future or transferable skills, or what careers could be good or bad, or if you have any questions about JGU, the Open Global University's admissions process, feel free to ask now. I already have a few questions. Kalrav asks, what if we want to try for sports at age of 16? I would say absolutely, go ahead. But remember, for every one Sachin Tendulkar, there will be million of batsmen and bowlers who will be trying for that same spot or trying to achieve that kind of glory, but who will eventually fail. The point is this: if at age 16, if you think you want to go for sports, go for it and put in everything that you have for it. But let's say at age 19, you decide you want to be a rock star and you pick up the guitar and you start playing and you start singing. Again, that shift isn't the problem, right? That shift should not be a problem as long as you're putting in all your determination and all your effort into it, right? Now, careers will change over time. Through your lifetime, you might have to go through many careers, many different jobs, many different approaches, many different perspectives to working. The point is, each of these changes are all right. It's okay not to know what you want to be at age 21 or at age 23 or age 30. It doesn't matter, right? I have a hand up, Megan De Silva. If you want to ask a question, please write down here. Okay, I've got your I've got your question. What are the trending careers options for PCB science students? I'm assuming that PCB stands for physics, chemistry, and biology, right? Okay, so for any science student for that matter, the world is literally your oyster, right? Right now, I can tell you that biosciences and pharmaceuticals are going to be a couple of sectors that are going to grow very, very quickly from here on in. For example, in 2015, Mr. Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, he did a TED talk. Now, this TED talk is available on YouTube, and I encourage all of you to take a look at it. Now, in this TED talk, Mr. Bill Gates says that when he was growing up, the biggest fear that his family had was that of nuclear holocaust. Because when he was growing up, America, the United States, was in the middle of a Cold War with Russia. And at any point of time, there could have been a nuclear attack. So as a child, his childhood home had an underground bunker with food enough to supply the family for about a month. Now, Mr. Bill Gates says that nuclear holocaust isn't our biggest fear. Our biggest fear is that of pandemics, one that we are seeing, that we are in the middle of right now. So if you are a PCB science student, there will be, what Bill Gates prophesizes is that there will be many more such pandemics as we continue. And this seems to be a trend. The COVID-19 coronavirus isn't the first, and it most certainly won't be the last. We've seen other viruses that have become epidemics over time. For example, the Zika virus, the Ebola virus, H1N1, SARS, MERS. These are all viruses that have come and gone. It's just that this particular virus, it seems to be far more difficult to handle than the others, right? So in terms of career options for PCB science students, I'd say biosciences and pharmaceuticals. That seems to be a great idea, a great choice in terms of a career. But having said that, and this is my advice to all of you who are listening in or watching this, don't pick a career just because you think there is scope in it, or just because there is going to be growth in it. You never know when artificial intelligence or some other technology takes over your career. And there have been so many careers that have died out. In fact, even as recently as a couple of years back, we had something called a data entry operator, somebody who would take handwritten notes and would type them out, or somebody who would hear a lecture or a discussion and would type it out. Now we have voice recognition software, we have handwriting recognition software. What happens to the jobs of all those data entry operators? What I'm trying to say is, don't pick a job or don't pick a career just because you think, or your parents think, or your teachers think, or your counselors think that there is scope in it. My recommendation is pick a career that appeals to you, no matter how fantastic that career is. Because if it appeals to you, if you feel for that career, if you like doing what you do, right, you'll do it better. So think of this, for those of you who've done Venn diagrams. Imagine a Venn diagram with what is it that you like doing, what is it that the world needs, and what you can be paid for. At the center of this is your career, what you enjoy doing, and the world needs it, and you can be paid for it. That's your career. But it depends upon what you enjoy doing. And therefore, again, while picking a career just for the scope is all right, my recommendation is do not do that. Figure out what you enjoy doing, and that will give you more happiness and will make you a better worker. But thank you, Megan, for that really interesting question. Anjali Naskar asks, what are the career options if I pursue international relations? Well, Anjali, the world is literally your oyster. So international relations specialists have a wide range of career options available. The obvious ones are working with the United Nations or any intergovernmental agency such as the World Bank, IMF, any of the UN bodies, any of the regional bodies, for example, SARC, ASEAN, NATO, and what have you, right? But moving away from, let's say, traditional careers in international affairs, well, there's one that I forgot to mention, which is that of a career diplomat. So there have been a number of cases where people have studied international relations, have gone on to crack the UPSC, and have gone on to become Indian Foreign Service officers. One very famous such example is that of Dr. Shashi Tharoor. Dr. Shashi Tharoor actually did a degree in international relations and then went on to apply for the UPSC, became India's ambassador, and nearly became the Secretary General of the United Nations. But moving away from international relations, the traditional career options, there are so many others. For example, you will note that there are so many news channels and news papers or magazines that often provide information and opinion on how international relations are panning out. I'll give you a small example. Recently, a couple of weeks back, some doctors in the United States suggested that this drug called hydroxychloroquine could be used to cure the coronavirus. And as it so happens, India is a major manufacturer, a major producer of that drug. So President of the United States, Mr. Donald Trump, goes on the air and says that I request the Indian government to remove its export ban on pharmaceuticals. You might recall that the Indian government has put a ban on the export of all all drugs, all medicines outside of India for an indefinite amount of time. But now you have the President of the United States requesting India, saying that, will you please remove this export ban and send us these drugs and medicines that we need. Now, there was so now this is a question of international relations. Now you'll have international relation analysts who will analyze this statement by Donald Trump and will come to a conclusion whether or not India should reciprocate, whether India should send them medicines. So now you have people who have worked on international affairs, who have studied what the relationship between the United States and India has been, and then could advise the government of India or policymakers saying that, yes, you should release the drug, or no, you should not. In fact, there was even a time or a brief moment really when President Donald Trump seemed to be threatening the Indian government if they did not release these medicines. So in terms of career options, while you have the traditional ones, which is working in an intergovernmental organization or an agency, or becoming a career diplomat, you could also get into policy analysis as a policy analyst. You could also work as a researcher advising the government on policy. There are plenty of research think tanks and bodies that do this work on a regular basis, right? So for example, another recent example I can think of is the Chinese government bought a few shares of HDFC Bank. This happened about last week. As a result, immediately, the Indian government passed a law saying that all investments from neighboring countries must be first vetted and approved by the government of India. Now, does this create tension between China and India? Of course it does. How will this pan out? A career in international affairs will help you to figure out these questions. Okay. Dennis Tokchom, sorry. Is architecture still a possibility without PCM? Dennis, unfortunately, there are some some careers or some programs of study which are heavily regulated. Some of them include, let's say, medicine. So the MBBS program is heavily regulated by the Indian Medical Council. The law programs, all law programs in India, including ours, is regulated by the Bar Council of India. All architecture programs are also regulated by the Council of Architecture. Now, we have a Bachelor of Architecture degree at OP Jindal Global University, but the problem is that we cannot accept any students into our architecture program without physics, chemistry, and maths. That's a requirement that the Council of Architecture has. However, if you're interested in architecture, there might be a few other options for you. For example, we have a course on a program on the built environment studies, right? So it's not just architecture in terms of buildings, but how do these buildings engage with each other to form, let's say, a cityscape. Now, I'm assuming that you guys I'm assuming you guys are from DPS Khanapara, and I'm sure you visited Guwahati a couple of times. I'm sure you visited other cities. Hopefully, you've seen Calcutta, Delhi, Mumbai, and each of these cities has a particular feel about them in terms of architecture, right? Now, this is what we call the built environment. How do you create a built environment that engages with the person who's walking through it, right? So when you're walking through a street and you're looking at different buildings, how do you ensure that these buildings are built in a particular way that engages the person who's looking at these buildings? So that's one option in terms of the Built Environment Studies program at JGU. Another option, and we've just started it this year, is the Bachelor of Design program for interior design. Now, interior design is, in my view, architecture, but from the inside out, right? Both of these courses, the Bachelor of Arts in Built Environment Studies and the B Design in Interior Design, both of them, neither of them require physics, chemistry, maths, right? So if you'd like, feel free to take a look at our website and figure out what the eligibility criteria is and if it's something that you'd like to do. All right, I have another question that's come up, which is what are the admission procedures at OPGIN? So it's fairly simple. It's all online. We don't do anything on paper. We've been doing this for the last few years. You get to our website, that's jgu.edu.in, and you go to the application page. You start your application. It'll take you a few hours to complete the application. There are a number of questions. There are a number of details about you and your parents that we need to know. For example, your class 11 marks, your class 10 marks, and so on and so forth, right? Once you've completed the application, the next round would be meeting with a faculty member of the school that you've chosen and to engage with the faculty member in a conversation. So the faculty member and you will have a fairly long discussion about a number of issues and subjects, based on which the faculty member will say yes or no. If the faculty member says yes, then you will be given a provisional offer of admission. Mind you, this is provisional, right? You will also need to appear for an exam called the JSAT, the Jindal Scholastic Aptitude Test. Now, this is a standard scholastic aptitude test with both quantitative and qualitative sections, right? Depending upon your program. So, for example, if you have a program that is heavy, that requires a bit of maths, for example, our BA Economics program, then the quantitative side or the maths part of the JSAT will be that much more. On the other hand, if you're picking up something, let's say like our liberal arts program, where there is some maths, but we are more looking towards your comprehension skills, your ability to read and write in English, then the qualitative side or the comprehension side of the exam will be slightly more. Now you clear the JSAT. If you clear the JSAT, then you have an admission at OP Jindal Global University. Now this might take a few weeks or a few months, depending upon how quickly you want to move, right? But right now, of course, we can't do a JSAT exam because the way we do our JSAT exam is that we've tied up with a company called Pearson VUE, and they have test centers across the world, across India, including one in Guwahati. And students have to go to their test center to appear for that exam. All right. Okay. I don't seem to have any other questions right now, but if you have a few questions, now is a good time to answer. All right. Great. I don't think any other questions are coming in. Well, it was great having all of you here today. And oh, wait, there's another question that's coming again from Megan De Silva, who says that I've been planning to study abroad for my undergraduate degree. Since the SAT exams have been postponed, other chances and other changes might be on the ways. Well, is it still a good option to study abroad with a scholarship? Well, Mr. Silva, I would strongly recommend against studying abroad right now. A number of reasons why. I haven't checked today's numbers, but the United States leads the world in the number of coronavirus cases. I have friends and family and former students who are in the US right now, and I'm very, very scared for them. And I'm seeing pictures and videos of US citizens who are coming out on the street and protesting the lockdown, right? In that scenario, I don't think it's a wise idea to go to the US at all, because with this kind of behavior by US citizens, I don't see the coronavirus going away for a very, very long time in the United States. That's just the US. If you look at the other countries that have been badly affected, most of them are in Western Europe. Even Australia has been affected. Now, these are the countries that Indian students would typically go to. So in a study in 2018, the Ministry of External Affairs, they came out with this report saying that in 2018, there were 7 lakh Indian students studying abroad, of which the majority went to either the US, UK, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and China. Right? All of these countries have been badly hit. Consider the situation in Australia. The Prime Minister came on record to say, international students, please go home. It was fine while we were under normalcy, but now we need to protect our own citizens. We need to protect Australians. You are not Australians. You are no longer welcome. Please do not be a burden on our healthcare system. Now, with that kind of mentality, with that kind of a perspective that many foreign governments have had, right? I don't know whether it's a good idea to go abroad right now. I checked a few days back. I checked on the US immigration website. Now, to go to the US, in order to get a visa for the US, you have to apply for the visa and you have to go and attend and appear for an interview, for which an appointment has to be taken in advance. Today is 22nd of April. The earliest available appointment for a visa to the United States is on 21st of October. 21st of October. I don't know whether or not, even if you do get an offer from a university abroad with a scholarship, I don't know whether you'll actually be able to go or not. You might say that, well, a lot of universities are doing online classes, and that's true. A lot of American universities, hell, even a lot of Indian universities are doing online classes. But consider the tuition fees. Is those tuition fees worth online classes, right? Because clearly, if you're going abroad, that is going to cost that much more. If it is going to cost that much more, you need to get your money's worth. And if you're still paying the same tuition fees as you would otherwise, then why is it that you're only getting online classes? What about the campus experience? What about life, living your campus life with your roommates, with your classmates? All of those experiences are out of the window then, which is why my recommendation is to not study abroad, at least not in 2020, perhaps even 2021. What could be a good option though is to do your undergraduate studies, your bachelor's degree from an Indian university, and then look for a postgraduate or a master's degree from a foreign university. Now, that is what a lot of people are already doing. Of course, the problem is that somebody who had her or his sights set on a university abroad, how do you choose an Indian university that well, almost fits the bill. Now, that is a question I'll leave to you as to how to um, to figure out that answer, right? All right. So this was a question from Triveni. All right, great. Thank you. If there are any other questions, again, now is a good time. I don't see any new questions coming up. So if there aren't any other questions coming up in the next 15 odd seconds, then we should wrap up soon. All right, great. I hope this has been useful for everyone. I hope to, at some point of time when I travel to Guwahati or any other part of Assam. By the way, my mother teaches in Assam Valley School, so I come to Assam very, very often as I can. But and I hope to visit your school someday. And thank you for listening. Thank you for having the patience. Um, and what else? Stay at home, stay safe, and stay healthy. It was great having you with us, and we'll hopefully catch up with each other soon.